Hello, growers. Jordan River, Growcast. Today we have Marybeth Sanchez. Marybeth, you know and love. Today's episode is really good. It's an IPM overview. We talk about lesser-known pests, soil biology, fungi. It's a really, really strong one. I know you're going to enjoy the episode with the queen of the Slack chat. Speaking of the Slack chat, it is early in the month. Make sure to join membership, only $10 a month, over 100 hours of bonus content with the ad-free member podcast, archived episode, and Growcast TV, live web show, baby. No one doing anything like it. Come and check it out. Growcast on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Growcast. Before we jump in with Marybeth, quick shout out to AC Infinity, acinfinity.com. Use code GROWCAST15 for the best fans in growing, period. They got sexy tents when they're in stock, thick and durable, good looking tents with a controller mount as well. But don't sleep on their fans. Go upgrade your ventilation, acinfinity.com. Use code GROWCAST15 and make sure to send us snapshots of all your codes to be entered to win a variety pack of Growcast seed code. That's USA only. Unlimited entries. You guys were asking me, send us your snapshots, everybody. When you use one, send it. You're entered. So that's how this is going to work, and I know you guys are really excited about that. So thank you, and thank you to Rhizo Rich for everything we're doing over at Growcast Seed Co., for our members especially. All right, everybody, let's get into it with Marybeth Sanchez. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to Growcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in yet again today. Before we get started, please share Growcast with a grower. Spread the show. It's how we grow. I appreciate it, folks. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a good rating and review. It helps us out at the show. Today we have the one and only queen of the Growcast Growers Chat, Marybeth Sanchez. What's up, Marybeth?
Jordan, you flatter me. I just love it.
Well, we love having you on.
It's a lovely day. Oh, thank you, dear. It's sunshiny and wonderful. We're supposed to get some more rain and snow, so I don't know what's happening with our season. Our buds are all swelling, but yet we know that there's still frost going to come. So, confused plant life out here. But it is looking psychologically, you know how the sunshine just brightens up your life. It's nice to see. It's nice to see the blue sky.
Psychologically, exactly. It's just warming up here, too. There's still like a patch of snow in my backyard, but it's melting.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I know there were several gopher reports. Hopefully, there will not be a second wave here. Hopefully, that'll be the final one, because, my God, the sun feels so good. I feel like, it's necessary that we get a nice, sunny, early sunny season here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so here we are, folks. You guys love Marybeth Sanchez. You guys love Growcast. We're talking about IPM. This is kind of like a classic grow chat, because we're going to talk IPM. We're going to talk hard-bodied insects, pest solutions, but then we're also going to talk about water quality. And so it's a bit of a mix and match. It's a bit of a grow chat. So enjoy the wonderful knowledge of MBS IPM on Instagram. You just did a great webinar on IPM for the amazing Dr. Zymes. We've discussed it here on the show before, but But let's do a little recap. You know, it's critically important, as you always say. There's a multitude, a plethora, a menagerie of different insect species. But really, you just got to learn, the handful that plague cannabis and focus in on those and ID those. You still stand by that statement? Is that fair to say?
Oh, so true, because there's no way on earth you could memorize. I get so often someone will show me a picture of an insect and they're just concerned, what is this and what should I do? And normally, you know that it's not a bad guy because you've never seen it before. Usually you've seen the bad guys all before. The ones that really are the pests. Thankfully, there aren't nearly as many of those, like as far as the numbers go, individual species. And so they are easier to remember the bad guys than to remember every single insect out there. There are just thousands of species of just like flies alone or nematodes alone or, little things like that. There's just too many.
Right.
Most of them are beneficial or what they call indifferent. They don't hurt you or they don't bother you in any way. They're just there for their own purposes, not causing trouble.
That can be alarming.
Oh, well, when they suddenly show up in mass, they can scare you because you don't necessarily know, is it a good guy or a bad guy? Do I need to worry when, an occasional passing cricket and grasshopper is usually how they occur, and it's not usually super detrimental to your garden. But if they get a population explosion, then they start to swarm, and then they become a swarm of locusts. And everything in their path is, fair game for them to eat. They will absolutely decimate things. There's nothing more heartbreaking than watching people in a field desperately trying to get the locusts and, the giant swarms off of their crops. They're so helpless.
It's like a biblical plague.
And you can't stand to watch them eat it. But see, what you want to do is to never allow the populations of the pests to get out of control that way. And that's why we always practice prevention as the best defense that you can have, including with the grasshoppers, which, let me just get it out of the way. Grasshoppers, crickets, that whole family, the katydids, the little, those big jumpers, they look a lot alike. They're all in the same family. They are killed by a thing called Nosema locustae, which is, I believe it's a fungus that's kind of like the cordyceps fungus. I could be wrong. It could be a bacteria. I don't know why my brain goes sideways sometimes with that, but irrelevant.
It's a microbe. It's a micro. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a biological that they put in something that's kind of like bran as a carrier. And you take this bran stuff that's inoculated with the Nosema locustae, which only affects creatures in this family. It won't affect you or me, although they say don't breathe it, don't inhale it. I guess it would maybe have some ill effect. But as far as, the deadly effect, it's only for that species. It won't kill any other species of insect out there. But if you have a place like where I live, our nursery is bordered by woods all around. So, basically woods and fields and places where crickets love to be and grasshoppers love to be. So we could easily have a problem. And, in the dry, dusty areas, every step you take, there's 20 crickets jumping out of your way. You have a few too many. So you need to start putting this stuff around your weedy perimeters. You don't want to put it in your garden area, but around the outside edges, because that's where they hang out and hide when they're not eating on your crop. And that's where they'll take it back to their, what you want to call their nesting area, where the majority of their population hangs out, and they spread it amongst each other that way. So it's very effective as far as it won't eradicate their population from the face of the earth. You will still see them, but not nearly so many. And
that is fascinating.
It's okay if a cricket goes by and takes a bite and goes, because usually they're kind of like that. They're kind of like the goats. They take a few bites and they go to the next plant. They don't really necessarily take your plant down until they're getting to that state where the climactic conditions are right. And oh boy, you've got a swarm on your hands.
Wow. You get them too riled up, and then they start working together. That is super fascinating. Right. So this is kind of where I wanted to go with today's episode, talking about, not your average pests. There's lots of great content on this podcast and just all over the place on handling the usual cannabis pests. And a lot of those applications are the same. Let's be honest. If you've got spider mites, thrips, or aphids, you're using a lot of the same sprays that we recommend on the show. Jack's Bug Be Gone, Amazing Dr. Zymes, Mammoth Can Control, Plant Therapy. There's a multitude of them. Those are generally, now there is like a class of pests I would say is worse, like your russets and your broad mites. And in that case, make sure you jump in the growers Slack chat and we'll help you out. That's like a more serious thing. But then there's this still common pests. I would put that in the category. But then there's these like ones that you really don't see all that often. Grasshoppers and crickets would be what I would consider. I had to deal with house flies last year and I didn't know what to do. That was terrible.
Right. And it's not so much, it's you just can't figure out what's attracting them. They're not going to really be eating the plants, but they're going to be crapping on the plants where you don't want them to be.
On them. Ugh.
And putting the maggots out where you don't really want to see maggots. Ugh. And, they're just kind of disgusting.
Yeah. 100%, but
usually there was something there, like you didn't realize some piece of manure or something in the mix that you didn't realize that it was just heaven on earth to them.
They liked the tents. They liked something about the climate of the tents, and they would
controlled environment. Oh yeah.
So I got to figure that out this year. So house flies was a horrible one. Crickets and grasshoppers I've never experienced as an indoor grower.
Well, every once in a while, somebody comes up with a beetle issue where there's a little beetle called a flea beetle, which makes shot hole like holes in your leaves, tiny ones, little small ones, but they just really reproduce quickly. And they have a fungus net like life cycle where they go in part of the time above the soil and part of the time below the soil. So they're one of the ones that when they come, they're really frustrating because they're called a flea beetle because they are very flea-like in the fact that they jump a long distance with any provocation. So if you're trying to spray them, it doesn't work because off they go.
They dodge it? That's hardcore.
Oh my God.
It's
And
like the Matrix.
yeah, and they're so small that you can't like just go try to squish them because whoops, then they're gone. And then they have that hard shell, so it's hard to get things to penetrate with them. So the only way that I was really able to beat the flea beetles when that was an issue, and also the sorrel beetles, you kind of have to treat them the same way because they are. First, I'll tell you what to do, and then we'll talk about sorrel beetles. The flea beetles, what you have to do is you really have to have that physical barrier because you can try to spray them with things, but you're just not likely to get the stuff on. And you can try to put, maybe if you have a really generous amount of neem seed meal in your soil, you might prevent something in the soil from continuing the life cycle. But more than likely, the way to break that life cycle is to have that dry barrier on top, because similarly to the fungus gnat, they will lay the eggs and they'll fall on the top.
I see.
And they'll dry up and die.
I love that top sand.
Yeah. Yes, and it really works. And you can indoors or out. You assume you have enough heat in there that dries off fairly quickly. And a physical barrier was the only thing that really killed the life cycle on those flea beetles, and I didn't have that problem anymore.
Whoa!
So yay!
More uses for sand.
And with the sorrel beetles, the sorrel beetles are a very pretty beetle. When you first see them, you just go, "Oh, that's so pretty." They're very tiny, not as tiny as the flea beetle, but they're very iridescent, like a blue-green, shimmery, sweet looking. Really, I think they probably use them to make dyes and colors and inks and things in the olden days, crushed up shells. Right. They were so pretty, but they're terrible on your plants. If you see your plants are looking like somebody just chewed them up and spat them out, that was a sorrel beetle. They're just vicious the way that they consume a plant, and very quickly. It just looks like a real messy eater. Just making your leaves just look horrible. What can I tell you? And then you see these very pretty little beetles everywhere, and you're going, ugh. And they're called sorrel beetles as a common name because they frequently love to be in the sorrel. That as a real low-growing ground cover that's like a clover. It really grows in the woods a lot. It's beneficial to have around your soil, except for the fact that it attracts sorrel beetles. You might want to have it as a trap crop, maybe, but with that kind of a beetle, because of that hard shell, it's really hard to spray it with anything. And I found with that, you kind of have to almost drench them like every day until you don't see them anymore. Jeez. With something similar to like a Mighty Wash or Dr. Symes, or there was a product called Annihilator. These are all things that'll kind of explode the bodies of these bugs out, but you really have to give them a ridiculous quantity of the stuff. But most beetle things, something with spinosad is usually what's most highly recommended. Spinosad has a really good effect on beetle-type bugs on most all edible plants. And it's safe and organic for all edible plants except cannabis, because with the medical thing, people are so persnickety about what they allow in the cannabis thing. So even though it's okay in organic food, they don't want to have it in their medicinal cannabis.
Interesting.
Because it's a biological.
So I've heard that about spinosad. Mm-hmm. That is fascinating. That's an older, it's been around for longer than a lot of these newer solutions. And that spinosad, interesting little side note that Wolfman told us about, as organic as it is, was showing up in testing of concentrates.
Yes.
So the flowers were passing, and then the concentrates were failing for spinosad. Yeah. Now, you're saying that is a biological product, but you're right. The way that this testing goes and the strictness of it, you don't want anything showing up in the concentrate. So something about the concentration process will pull out that spinosad. If that's just you in your garden, that's one thing.
Right. And if it's your own use and you're not, turning it all into concentrates, that's probably not going to be a problem for you if it's something that you had to do. And hopefully you don't have those kind of beetles and don't have to do that.
Right.
Because there are better solutions for the easier
soft-bodied ones. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of, the spinosad has kind of become the big guns. That's hilarious, because back in the day, azadactrin and spinosad was the gentle combo when everybody was spraying avermectin and pylon when, using the bad stuff.
People I know who have fruit crops, with trees and things. And we've always had really good luck with spinosad when they've been attacked by various little beetles and things that want to eat on your fruit trees and such. So it's pretty good. For a long time, yeah, you could say it was discovered originally in Jamaica. Very weird.
Oh, is that true?
One of those things that came out of Jamaica, yeah, in some mining operation. It was like a byproduct. They just found this biological thing that seemed to have these effects. And so now they've started just collecting and commercially applying it. I don't know. They probably have some way of reproducing it outside of Jamaica now. But
jeez, that's fascinating.
It's a Jamaican, man.
It's a Jamaican, man. The spinosad, man.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You just like threw me for a loop there. I wonder how many things are out there that are like that we just never discovered. How many?
Yeah.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
But interesting about the beetles. We just had someone in this, not the band, about beetles in general. We just had somebody in the growers chat post that they had a borer beetle boring into their cannabis. Now, working in coffee, the coffee borer beetle is the pest of choice for your you would, that's the one you wouldn't choose, I guess is what I'm saying, because it destroys literally millions, I don't know, maybe billions of dollars of coffee every single year. The coffee borer beetle.
About that.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Is it very, very similar in that it's a hard-bodied insect? It's going to literally calls it a borer. It's not a dullard. It's not boring. It's like it's boring like a drill bore. It dives into your stems. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that coffee one, that's terrible because that lives its whole life cycle inside the bean, and where you don't get your bean if it's full of boring beetles.
Yep, that's right.
Dang, that you do have to take incredible preventative measures with that particular critter. I think so much of it is just keeping it from being present in any way, and at every step along the way, you have to do something to make sure that if there are any that came through, they have to be eliminated at every stage because they are just
devastating.
Detrimental to the coffee crop.
But I had never seen it in cannabis. There's no
it's
cherry.
It's just a different kind of a beetle.
It's just a different kind, but it's doing the same thing. It's eating the meat. It's eating the stem meat. It's eating whatever it can bore into.
What I normally see in the stems are more like termite things. There's things that came from the ground and burrowed up and then kind of emerged from the side of the stem maybe when it got to a point where it wanted to break out and kind of broke the stem open. But I haven't really seen borers going into stems without coming from the ground. So this is new to me, but I'm not really surprised because as old as I am, people keep finding new things to show me. Like, wow, really? There's still something I haven't seen. Okay, here's another new. It's possible. It's very possible. And, sometimes it could just be part of the evolution. Like suppose that creature normally ate or bored into some other tree and that tree species isn't as prevalent or whatever. Now it's trying something new. Lucky you. You got to be the experimental dinner. But I know that I think I suggested to them something with spinosads, probably your best bet against that. It would usually work pretty quickly. Usually maybe 1, 2, 3 applications or so is what people are reporting back to me that's worked for them.
It's an interesting thought you just said, though, because you think this is a borer beetle trying something new. Like coyotes began to adapt to urban life and they raid dumpsters and they do with all these home grows now. There's a pest out there who just hasn't gotten a taste for cannabis yet. Like when Jaws gets a taste for human blood or like a man-eating tiger. You're so right. I bet that there's just a whole species just waiting to dive into the cannabis scene.
Oh yeah, they used to say that the deer didn't eat the cannabis. Well, the deer eat the cannabis now. They have developed a taste for that stuff. It isn't bad after all.
This stuff is great. You got to get to California. They got the best salads.
Tell you what, well,
it's true.
In our neighborhood, boy, the things that are left for the deer to eat in the wintertime are pretty sad. So my husband and I, we can't help ourselves. We go when we made a patch of clover for the deer, and we get a bale or two of alfalfa so that if they come in the yard, there's something they can eat. It is the hardest thing walking a mother and child by, and you can see nothing but snow. And where do you go? Where do you find even a blade of grass in the winter in the woods and the mountains?
Wow.
Hey, it's rough on them poor deers. I know they're supposed to die and stuff, but God,
I never liked Bambi.
it was terrible.
Never liked that movie. It was always sad, too sad in the beginning for Marybeth.
Too much tension.
Yeah, you would hate it out here. It's weird. We just talked about this on Growcast TV. The deer out here have this chronic wasting disease because of all these. It's bad because of the Lyme and the ticks and the environmental factors and
few different things.
But deer are another pest, apparently, for cannabis. You gotta, and that's, is there anything you can do other than fences and maybe some repellents? Maybe a compound bow? I know you would never do that, Marybeth.
Absolutely. There are people, and that's what they do. But fencing is it, really. Fencing and as much as you can. The thing is, they can jump, so you have to have high fencing.
Just jump in.
If you just have a visual deterrent, though, I've noticed that works. Like where we only had about 6 feet of fencing, we had some bamboo sticks, and we went and stuck the sticks up so it made it like appear like higher. And they did. If we put them close enough so they wouldn't jump between the sticks, they're okay, we can get away with that. But they can jump an 8-foot fence if they're really good. Some of them are that good. Not all of them are that good, but. Man, I've seen a cow jump a fence before, and I just couldn't believe it. That if they get excited and they're strong, but the deer will usually just look through the fence longingly. But if they find any opening, you're vulnerable.
Holy shit! You're cracking me up today. Looking through the fence longingly. It sounds like you put up a palisade wall like Braveheart, like with your stakes, like your.
It is my
Celtic
little
pikeman
sticks up there. God. Oh, man.
With
but
your
I tell you
Roman
what, we have all these lovely plants growing. We want, vegetables and fruits and things. And it's all lush and like paradise inside the fence. And when the deers come along and they're looking at that and outside, all they've got is they don't want the manzanita or the oak leaves are too high or, there's everything else is dead. And I feel so bad. So, yeah, we made the clover and the alfalfa just so that I don't feel bad about them coming into my yard. And, oh, God, I'm a bleeding heart woman.
We love it. That's why we love you, Marybeth. That's why you're one of my absolute favorite people to talk to.
Oh, you darling.
We'll be right back with Marybeth. But before that, Rain Science Grow Bags. I love Rain Science Grow Bags. They are the best cannabis growing containers around. High-quality mesh grow bags. Use code GROWCAST for 10% off. Find all of our discounts listed at growcastpodcast.com/discounts. And make sure to send us snapshots when you use a code to be entered to win Growcast Seed Go Seeds. That's USA only. Rain Science Grow Bags, like I said, they're simply the best. They're mesh, they last forever. You can wash them, you'll never throw them out. They've got great sizes, tall ones, skinny ones, flat ones, cone ones. And again, it's about that air pruning, right? When the roots hit the edge of your pot, if it's a plastic pot, they just spin and spiral, and they never really start that lateral branching as much as they should. Whereas in a fabric pot, or even better, a mesh pot, like a Rain Science Grow Bag, they air prune. They get to the edge and they know their limits, and then they begin to branch laterally and fill out the inner space in that root ball. That's what you want. That's for max uptake, max growth, max yield. RainscienceGrowbags.com. Use code GROWCAST. GrowcastPodcast.com/discounts for all our codes. Make sure to send us your snapshots. All right, everybody, let's get back to MBS. Another pest that we see in the Slack chat all the time, cats, house cats, their own cats. They'll leave the tent open, they'll turn their back, and they'll execute seedlings, they'll dig up shit, and then they'll take a picture of their cat next to their fucked up plant, and the cat's just looking at the camera like it's...
What, me?
Sometimes like it's satisfied, like, yeah, I did that. What are you going to do about it? You're going to clean my poop after this anyways.
Exactly. I own you, mister.
He was getting jealous of the garden. I'm not joking. I mean, I'm bringing this up kind of in jest, but we've literally had 6 posts in the past few months of people's cat. My cat I caught him climbing the outside of my tent, and he was putting pinholes all in my tent. Oh my God.
Darling.
Nothing you can do about that. You just got to keep your eye on that cat, man.
I think they have repellents like, that you can get from, pet supply places that will repel animals from things. But they're probably just as gross for you. I've not tried them myself, but it may be somewhat helpful. I don't know.
That's not a bad idea.
Or just try to keep them away from your gross. But cats are little darlings, so that how they'll just appear inside of a space that you didn't have any idea how they got there.
crawling through the ventilation tubing.
Open a cupboard. Out comes a cat. Well, hello. Or a closet door.
Now, you've mentioned trap plants before. That's actually the perfect solution for the feline cat is a catnip trap plant on the other side of the room. Yeah, it's perfect. And then they're just stuck over there. That's exactly.
There you go.
It's just like a pepper plant catching all the aphids.
Oh, man. We had these 4 cats now that we brought home from the old nursery where, the store consolidated. So now there's just 1 instead of 2. But when we brought these cats home, we had catnip in our yard, and I swear to God, our cats were like little junkies. They just started being like tweakers, and I went, "Oh man, this catnip's got to go."
It's too powerful.
Not okay, they're not handling it well.
The cats aren't all right.
No, they were crazy. So every time I see catnip now, I'm ripping it up. Normally, it wasn't a problem for my previous cats, but these kids are on the hyper side.
Oh man, these kids these days, they're going way too hard on the catnip. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Back a little on that catnip, kids.
Oh my gosh. So we've done crickets, we've done deer, we've done cats, we've done beetles.
Termites.
Oh, termites.
Termites and ants. Sometimes people have problems, especially outdoor growers. Dr. Symes will kill them instantly.
Yeah,
and also you can make boron traps with boron. You can look online probably for little videos. It'd probably be easier than listening to me try to explain it. But basically you make like a little paste of the boron. The soap, borax is what you would use. Mm-hmm. And make a little paste of it and put it into a container that animals can't get into, but ants or termites can. And you find the trail that they're coming in and you put it on as close as you can get to wherever their nesting site is underground, because that way there's a good chance that they'll get that back to the queen before it kills them. And when you kill the queen, that colony is done. Okay. And so really you want to kill the queen if possible, but they kill as many of the workers as you can. At least you could do that with those boron traps.
Those are effective from what I understand. And there's lots of YouTube videos on it. You can use like little pop, like plastic soda tops. And then there's even ways to kind of cover it so that your pets won't get after it. And there's lots of good solutions on YouTube, I would say.
It is dangerous to the, animals and things to consume. So they just have to make sure that, somehow the holes are big enough for ants, but not for anything else.
Yeah, we had to do that for ants in our house, but I never had them get into my garden.
And cinnamon is a good repellent, but it only is so effective. It's not 100% effective. So, you can spend a lot of money on cinnamon and still find a ding-dang ants. Deciding to bear with it and go through it anyway. We have bees, so, ants are a problem with bees because they want to try to get that honey too. Oh,
that makes sense. We had termites in our house up in Humboldt. In Eureka, but they never got into my garden. I'd imagine they would love to eat that cannabis wood, essentially.
The inner part of the stalk is just delightful to them.
Oh man, I bet it's a delicious treat.
So and California's full of subterranean termites.
Yep, exactly.
We are famous for that. Earthquakes and termites.
That's what I was thinking. If they would have just gone a little bit around to the back to the outbuilding, they would have had a feast. But they were already in the I think we had redwood siding.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't let it, get too bad or anything, but they get in there and those things are devastating. They will those are the two things, the dry rot and the termites.
They will eat your house.
But man. Keep them out of the garden though. Whatever. Eat my house, just leave my cannabis. Oh man.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I do want to mention the worst cases that I hear about that people sometimes come across, either especially outdoor growers, is caterpillars in the buds. Caterpillars in the buds are the worst problem because the sprays can't reach them in the buds.
Right.
And they come from moths and caterpillars that are really hard to, you've got to just kind of basically be standing there and spray them as they come one at a time. They don't, come all at once and stay, so that you could treat them in a ways like that. That's practical. So if you have that sort of a situation where, you're getting caterpillars in your buds every year, you've got to put a mosquito net over that plant. You've got to make sure that those things cannot be penetrated, because those caterpillars and those moths and butterflies are laying the egg right inside the bud as close as they can. They want that food source for the baby.
Wow.
They want, as soon as that egg is born, that they have that luscious bud to eat off of. And as soon as they hatch, they begin to eat and crap and eat and crap and eat and crap, and you've got botrytis.
Yep, 100%.
So, you got nice dense buds. That's the end of the world. So prevention. Please remember, netting is your best friend, and those bug zappers are going to be your best friend.
Oh.
And if you're in an outdoor crop and you've got a bug zapper, you're worried about the light, it's not going to be bright enough to hurt your flowering cycle.
Oh, good to know.
It's not enough of a light to
trigger the photoperiodism.
You've got moonlight every night, so you're not going to be bothered by that little tiny thing. It's not like a bright light. Well, let's hopefully you don't have a bug zapper that's also a powerful light, but usually they're a very dim light.
That's all new to me. It's foreign to me as an indoor grower, but you're saying netting over the plant is really the only true way to, because you can't just stand there all day and wait for something to come by.
Yeah, physical barrier is your best bet again, and because it is a terrible problem for outdoor growers. Oh my Lord! Yeah, when the butterflies come, we love our pollinators and we have to have them, but at the same time, the ones that lay the eggs and the flowers, and they are prevalent in the areas where people grow cannabis for some reason.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Food.
I saw a brutal video on social media of a vape cartridge that had a little worm in it, what I assume was it was like a baby caterpillar that had made it all the way into the vape cartridge and purchased. Don't know if it was real. I mean, I assume it was real. It didn't look fake, but it was just that one made me kind of shiver.
They're trying to imitate that tequila with the worm.
Nice, Marybeth.
They're going hardcore.
That was a good one.
The hardcore.
You smoke the whole cartridge and you crack it open and eat the worm. It's like a savage. I love it. It's my type of thing, man.
All right. Oh, geez.
Okay, that was a wonderful IPM exploration. My God, do you have a few more minutes? We could do a little water exploration. Not much, just
let's do it.
Because, it kind of goes hand in hand with that spraying. I do want to say we focus a lot on preventative sprays because that is what is acceptable. That is what's accessible. That is what's common. There are lots of other IPM solutions. Go back, listen to other episodes with Marybeth, look into predator bugs, all that stuff. But when it comes to the sprays, really, I was realizing because of my water struggles, the importance of using a clean water in your grow, obviously, and then also in your sprays, in your pest sprays, in your foliar products, especially if you're using any biologicals.
Yeah.
Now,
pH matters.
Yeah, pH matters. And also, but this is the big one, is I have a pH pen. My big thing was I was used to growing on well water, and it was great. I know all wells are different, and that means different things for different people. But my situation was great. Now here the water is terrible. What ended up happening was my house filter system was basically on bypass. And I was not filtering my water except through the last little boogie blue blast, and it was garbage water for a few weeks till I switched to RO, and it's been brilliant since then. But I'm now dealing with demineralized water for the first time. So here's my question to you: demineralized water, ideal for spraying? How do we use it in our garden and organic soil? Maybe is remineralizing it something we're going to be worried about? What are your thoughts on RO water for both spraying and feeding?
Well, it just means you're not going to get any minerals from the water. So all the minerals that you're giving to your plants are going to be something that you're going to have to add to it, as you say, and kind of be careful your quantities. You don't want, most nutrients are only applied in trace element form. Trace meaning you don't want too much of it.
Right.
You want some, but you don't want too much. So, it's a good idea then to do things like put in a little extra kelp or what have you, which will have a lot of milk, a lot of mineral content. I don't know where my brain just went. Mineral content in the kelp, yeah, and it's usually in nice forms that the plant can take up, and hopefully, I always want to say use humic acids so that that no matter what minerals you might be getting, they'll be chelated so that you won't get any accidental overdosing of something you don't want in your plant. Because with chelation, those things are tied up until the plant and the biology agree that they're going to put that into the plant.
Right. They're going to make the swap.
And
they're
until
the trade.
and until they make that agreement, the chemical things don't happen to unlock that thing from its little casing and put it into the plant.
So I'm so glad you said the humic acids, because wouldn't that also, aren't those seabed derived humic acids also, they have their own micronutrients, right?
Well, you would think. I mean, that sounds like the best source to me. When you told me about Nourish L, I thought, oh, that sounds great. These people are on the ball. The lake bed ones are good too, but you think, the seabeds it's the same principle. This is where all the nutrients are washing into.
Interesting.
This is the place where they land, that they're not going any further until we extract them, either through the kelp or, through people who just want to do seawater, because when they get over that fear of salt thing, you have to really understand what salts are, just dissolved nutrients. But we have sodium chloride in our brain, and sodium chloride is the table salt that is not healthy for plants. But the mineral salts, if used correctly, are in tiny amounts because they are so soluble. You don't want to overdose your biology. If you're trying to keep your biology alive, you don't want to throw in a lot of things that could kill them in large quantities.
Sure.
In low quantities, those salts are actually okay and can be taken up by the biology. But when I say low quantities, I mean literally 1/10, and do the math, 1/10 of what you would normally apply in the same situation.
Oh, right. But that makes sense, because if you look at the salination of different freshwater bodies, they're all different.
Yeah.
So it's not like, does it have salt, therefore it's bad? You know what I mean? It's like seawater is just much more salinated, so salty. Yeah. And then lake to lake here in the Great Lakes, like they differ, or around the world they differ in salination. That's a good point.
Yes. Yeah. And minerals, any mineral in a dissolved form is a salt. And every mineral is a nutrient, and it has to get into a dissolved form before the plant can take it up. So don't let the term salt scare you too much. You kind of just think about what salt you're using and how much you're using.
Yeah.
Quantity is everything, because when you're looking at a bag of nutrients, then it says their NPK is, let's say 793. Okay, then it's got 7% of this, 9% of that, and 3% of the other.
Right.
And if you're going to want to double those amounts, you're going to want to put in double the amount recommended on the package. But if you want 1/10 of that amount, you got to think about, okay, so how little is 1/10? It's really very small.
Sure.
But all of that percent is the soluble portion, and it's soluble even in an organic fertilizer. The certain percent has to be soluble, or they can't list it.
Interesting.
So you can't put an NPK on your compost because it's not soluble yet, and the biology is working on it. And you can't quantify the nutrients that are tied up in the bodies of the biology. If your bacteria and your fungi are holding all that nutrient, there's no way for them to quantify that. So that may be loaded with NPK and et cetera in the bodies of the fungi and the bacteria, but they can't measure it.
Whoa, you just blew my mind, because that's exactly right. All of those microbes are just walking bags of fertilizer, right?
That's what they are.
So you don't, but quantifying their content is like a separate, wow, that's that. Exactly. I never really thought of it like that. That's fascinating stuff.
That's where soil tests will confuse people, because your soil tests, in a lab, they're only testing for the mineral soluble stuff. They're not testing at all for what the biology in the soil is holding.
Whoa.
So, they could say you don't have any available nitrogen, but they're not measuring that you might have all this biology that does have available nitrogen.
Jeez, that is fascinating.
Or, I'm kind of using extreme numbers like none, or, that's not what they're going to tell you. Yeah.
Well, you're illustrating. Yeah, I see the point you're illustrating.
But yeah, exactly.
But if you're using all of this wide array of products, so kind of back to the water source and water quality thing, I never ran into any micronutrient deficiencies on well water growing in my other house here in the Midwest, for obvious reasons. I bet there's lots of benefits to that well water. However, the municipal water switching to RO, I don't think I'm going to miss anything. That stuff was garbage. Like I said, my filter system was broken. I was using basically unfiltered city water for a brief period of time, and it was not good.
The different waters in different municipalities, some of them just really are awful. And the RO is not really an efficient thing for water consumption, but you figure you're not irrigating a field with acres and acres of RO water. You're doing a little indoor garden. You're just trying to have drinkable water out of your tap, so sometimes that's a necessity that is okay. Don't feel bad about that. But, obviously you're not going to be using that to to irrigate giant crops and things. But everybody's well water is different too. And sometimes you're in a place where the water is like artesian, and then you're in places where even your well water is like toxic, or the pH is so high or so low that it has to be adjusted all the time.
Yep, that's exactly
and
right.
I've been to some people's houses where, oh my God, I don't know if it's the well or if it's their plumbing, but it is not drinkable. It's not, you can't stand the smell. I can't even brush my teeth with it.
Smells like eggs because of the sulfur content or whatever it is. Yeah, totally. I've had that weird tap water. You're right though with the RO.
Bottled water, yeah.
Well, that was my struggle, right? Was because I don't even like doing my own drinking water out of the RO because of how much it wastes. I only use it for my garden because, for those who don't know, the RO system is one of the reasons it's so good is because it has a waste port and it kicks out 3 to 5 times as much as exactly depending on the system you have, it's wasting quite a bit. I don't like it.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
I gotta grow though, and the alternative is bottled spring water.
Don't feel bad because you're not the big waster of the water. Trust me, Jordan. You're not the one.
It is a garden-changing move for some people out there. It has completely transformed my garden. And Michael Travers was telling me this, by the way. Michael Travers, a successful grower who couldn't tell you the names of this microbe or that, specific biology. But you know what? He knows his shit enough to come in he said, you should switch to RO. He said this a long time ago. He said, you should switch to RO. Just switch to RO. Just switch to RO. He was fucking right. Shout out to start to finish. My garden is beautiful now that I'm going straight RO. But yeah, I'm not loving invest in a good system because I guess the cheaper ones kick out more waste, and I'm not loving that waste. I do hope to get to a better place where I don't need the RO eventually.
And there are some good filters, but you've got to change the filters all the time.
Right.
Sometimes people are amazed at how often those filters really need to be changed, and that cost adds up.
Yeah, it's true.
And, how much can you invest? But
it's not a cheap hobby.
That pH really does make a difference. The nursery where I was originally working at for this company that I work for is the water is very salty. It usually runs around 8. And at first, when I was growing there, I wasn't doing anything to adjust the pH. And the plants you could see, that you'd be getting what looked like deficiencies because, stuff was being locked out. And when I started adding the humic acids to every watering, miraculously, the pH was adjusted to, everything's about 7.
Wow.
So they were cool.
Right. That makes sense that it would raise that.
That it really, it made the difference. Yeah. Then all the colors of everything started looking good again. And, okay, well, we're learning that these tricks work.
Totally.
You just must apply it.
My RO comes out like 2.5 lower than it used to just come out of the Boogie Brew filter. And that's the thing about these filters. My understanding, please someone come and write me and tell me but I'm pretty sure this is the case. All these filters are made differently and pull out different things. There is no filter that's just going to surefire lower your ppm. We have people in the Slack chat saying that their tap water comes out at this ppm and filtered it comes out the same. It's because that filter isn't pulling whatever that mineral is. I think there's a wide variety of minerals. I think there's a wide variety of filter technology because some don't pull out chlorine, some do. They're all different. RO is a very specific, the process of osmosis is a very specific filtering process. And that's why it basically knocks out everything and brings it down to that level. So just to kind of bring it around to the growers out there, the traditional filters of any kind are going to kind of be a crapshoot unless you know exactly what's in your water. And for me, it just was not, none of it was enough. None of it could cut it. Any infinite amount couldn't cut it. And I needed to switch to RO. So that's my personal little story. Take it, listener, take it for what you will.
Well, yeah, it can be a life-saving investment. I know people around this area who've also done it. And they said they can't grow up without it because, like I say, in some places the water's just a little weird.
Garb. I don't even know.
It's not the same everywhere you go, even in the same, 10-mile radius.
Yeah, that's true. Everywhere. That's true, man. That's true. But yeah, I do want to emphasize that importance. And also I've noticed, just to cap it off, whenever I apply beneficial foliars or even spray with they seem to like it more. They didn't like the hard water being sprayed on them. Obviously, they like the RO water with just the goodies in it. Yeah. Even the sprays, my plants are thanking me for, people. So it's an interesting thought. And shout out to Start to Finish for being right the whole time, as usual.
Well, there's a thing about calcium, and you hardly ever see calcium applied foliarly. It's almost always applied to the roots because if calcium is regularly sprayed on something, you'll start to notice everything kind of turns crusty.
Yes.
like the waters in your showers, after
Yes.
they get this crusty buildup,
Exactly.
and everything turns kind of gray. It's all calcium buildup, and we don't need it. We don't need it. It'll block the photosynthesis after a while, and that's not the best way to take up CalMag for sure.
That's what was happening to my dehumidifiers with the shit water.
Yeah.
Is that they were calcifying. And good point. You can't calcify your plant's tissue. That's a terrible idea.
No, let's not do that. We have better ways.
Marybeth, this was a lovely exploration as usual.
Yes, indeed.
I'd say it was maybe one of our most informative. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and we wish you the best out there. Post up some pictures.
Amen.
We love seeing your pictures in the Slack chat and the growers chat. growcastpodcast.com/Slack, I think. Yeah, /Slack.
Oh, we're starting to get busy now.
Oh, man.
Yes, I will be posting more pictures because the nursery, it's about to start happening.
I'm excited,
It's
Marybeth.
like the egg is cracking open.
I am so excited. Thank you again, though. You are the best, Marybeth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll let you go. She does her little sign-off early while I wrap it up, and you go tend to your garden, Marybeth.
Thank you, sir. You have a lovely day.
Take care.
Nice talking to you, Jordan. Bye-bye.
That's all, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. I know you did. Thank you so much for remaining subscribed. We got great content headed at you as usual. We'll see you next time on Growcast, everybody. Be safe and grow smarter. That's our show for today. Thank you so much, everybody. Before we wrap it up, got to give some love to the FOOP. We love the FOOP nutrients. You can go to thefoop.com and use code GROWCAST the first time for 10% off, and GROWCAST forever after that. That's the numeral 4, EVA, GROWCAST forever. Also, upcoming, let's see, I believe it starts on the 11th. Use code GROWCAST BOGO. Buy one, get one at The FOOP. The FOOP is the best organic fish-based nutrients. It is a really interesting line for you who are looking to go organic, but you don't want to jump right into living soil. This is a great option. For those of you in living soil and you want a little booster, FOOP is a constant tool in my garden now, because I can use it as a broad spectrum nutrient and the plants love it. It's also packed with microbes, so how about that? Thank you to the FOOP. All right, everybody, that's all. I appreciate each and every one of you for staying subscribed, for sharing the show. Cannot express my gratitude enough. We'll see you next time on Growcast. Bye-bye.